Hello, hello! Future Ben here, and before we get started, I want to say that my debut self-published novel, Falling Through, is available now. We had a kick-ass book launch party last weekend, and if you missed it, you can check out this link. We went through all the juicy secrets and the inspiration that I poured into this story. If you managed to pick up your own copy, please, when you're done, go ahead and review it. It will really help out. Now on to tonight's episode. Hello, hello! I am Ben Pick, and thank you for joining me in Running to Write, where I give questionable writing advice through running metaphors. Today's episode will be a hot take. I've mentioned before how I don't enjoy reading stories with prophecies in them. I see those as a way to tell the reader vaguely what will happen without doing the work to establish the basics. Worse, prophecies can drive the plot, drama, character motivations, and the unsurprising, inevitable twist when the story does no such thing. Here's my long prophesized rant on why I don't like prophecies in stories, and why I have since scorched them from my writing. If you disagree with my opinion, and I encourage you to do so, and you don't want to stay for the next 10 minutes, then I hope to see you next week. I'll be including spoilers for Percy Jackson, A Song of Ice and Fire, Wheel of Time, and Dune. I'll include pauses and moments to skip to if you want to go into those series completely fresh, though I will be trying to keep my word choices generic so as to limit the spoilers involved. These are my questions I ask to know whether a prophecy detracts from a story, or if a story even exists. Without a prophecy, is there a plot? Without a prophecy, do the characters know where to go? Without a prophecy, is there a point at which the tension lags, typically around the swampy middle? In the stories I've read, prophecies are added when the plot is unfocused and the characters need to do something. These can offer guidance after an initial high-action moment where underlings attack the heroes and cause them to flee from their home, and now they don't know what to do next. They're wandering about in the metaphorical or physical woods. The prophecy tells them what their next objective is, or where they need to eventually get to. Or the prophecy may be the inciting incident that tells the daydreaming hero that they're going to go off and save the world. So that's what they do. I find this to be a simplistic writing style, and one which I've been guilty in partaking in. These vague prophecies are used to justify every bad decision the characters make, particularly those which go against their established traits, motivations, and desires. In the worst cases, prophecies add in drama and tension when there was none, or cover up common tropes. These are two perfect examples of prophecies I found to be detrimental. One of you will perish shortly, and you shall be betrayed by one who calls you a friend. For that first partial prophecy, I didn't care as much because in my first playthrough of the game that came from, Chrono Trigger, I disregarded it. After all, the whole point of that game is to rewrite history and change major events. Plus, the kid who said that prophecy was a spoiled brat and easy enough to disregard. While that game is, in my opinion, flawless, the prophecy didn't serve a purpose towards the plot. Rather, it was used to give a character more importance than they initially seemed to have. That is the one exception to bending a prophecy and making it work within a story. Have it so that no one believes the prophecy or forgets about it until the point at which it comes true. It wasn't a part of the plot, it was an insignificant side event. Now for a short breakdown of that second partial prophecy. It comes from the Percy Jackson series, so there will be mild spoilers ahead for the series as a whole. If you haven't checked out that or the rest of the Rick Riordan universe, I strongly encourage you to pick up those books and read them. They are fantastic. This ever-expanding universe continues to include a more and more diverse cast. In fact, I think the first transgender character I read came from the Gods of Asgard series. Again, if you don't want any spoilers, skip to this timestamp. You'll be doing yourself a favor. The second partial prophecy I mentioned gave away the lightning thief for me. I realize that these stories are based on Greek, Roman, and other god pantheons, and that prophecies play a major role in those stories. Furthermore, I recognize that the protagonists of the Percy Jackson series are teenagers who had never heard of prophecy before, and that the target audience is young adults. That being said, when I first read this as a young adult, it was obvious to me that no one in the main group would be betraying the others. Yet those characters acted as though every word in the prophecy was completely accurate, and they made a lot of bad decisions based on those wrong assumptions. All the while, I saw through the misdirection of the prophecy and understood who the traitor was and specifically what they provided to the heroes. Thus, when the trap was sprung as the heroes approached the finish line, it didn't have the otherwise gut punch reaction that betrayal could have without the prophecy. Sure, in the first book, it makes sense that the young heroes don't understand the prophecy. That's not an excuse for the adults who should be well versed in Greek myths and how prophecies play around with language. Then again, the adults in that series are almost always a part of the problem. Going back to the Percy Jackson series, by the time the fourth book comes around with the fourth prophecy in a row, the characters should be well versed in how to properly interpret them. This means that they'll know who will die and who will obviously live, despite all of their conversations and actions to the contrary. This brings me to my biggest problem with prophecies. They tend to be excuses to build drama and allow every character to make terrible decisions they normally wouldn't have without the misinformation they decide to act on. Think about the Greek god origins. Would Zeus and his family have needed to slay Kronos if Kronos hadn't acted on a prophecy where he was told that his children would kill him? If Kronos hadn't eaten his kids because of a prophecy, then there probably wouldn't have been the self-fulfilling prophecy where he was killed by his kids. If a story's plot is driven by a prophecy of what's to come, then I would argue that a story isn't actually present. What you have is a badly constructed instruction manual, or an Ouroboros, which is the snake that eats its own tail. If anyone still cares about the Song of Ice and Fire series, I'm going to go into some spoilers, and here's when I stop. Cersei uses a prophecy that her children will die and that she'll be killed by her younger brother to be an absolute monster. She terrorizes Tyrion and sends her kids away when she should have kept them close. Every selfish decision Cersei made to drive the plot forward can be attributed to that prophecy. While in the books and show, she assumed that the prophecy meant Tyrion would kill her, viewers and readers recognized that it was actually Jaime who would be sealing her fate as she transformed into the monster he would need to stop. Had she never heard the prophecy, would she have still become the series villain? I would argue no. Cersei would likely have acted selfishly and, given her father's ambitions, still become the Queen of Westeros. Without the prophecy meant to stir up drama for her and us the readers by telling us that a younger woman would take everything from Cersei, Cersei might have been more accepting of Margaery marrying her sons. That prophecy was also generic enough that it could apply to both Margaery and the Khaleesi and probably half a dozen other people. Perhaps in killing Margaery and alienating herself, Cersei allowed the Khaleesi to easily take everything from her because she was at her weakest. In my opinion, without Cersei's one prophecy, much of the conflict across several books would not have happened. Speaking about dragging plots with offensively large word counts, I'm about to spoil some details from Wheel of Time. Now, I want you to know I'm coming from a place of love. Granted, it is tough love, but it is still love. I really enjoyed my read-through of the series, though I firmly believe that it would have been better served if it were halved. That's a different topic for a different day, so if you don't want spoilers, skip to this timestamp. At the end of Wheel of Time, all of the political maneuverings and manipulations come to a head in a book-long series of battles. At that point, most of the drama has been replaced by action and tying up loose ends for the thousands of named characters across the series. To sow doubt and add tension this far into the series, there was a prophecy that one trusted character would kill another main character. The whole purpose of this was to create conflict where there was none, and to make it seem like a main character would not survive. A surprising number of bad decisions were made by characters acting on the prophecy, which largely served to extend the already excessive word count. Meanwhile, I was rolling my eyes because I recognized what the prophecy actually meant. Thus, all sense of tension disappeared for me. As this wasn't the first prophecy in the series, the characters should have known better. Characters used that prophecy as justification to act against their own goals and put everyone in life-threatening positions. Once again, the prophecy hinted at a traitor who I knew obviously wasn't. Including a prophecy foretelling of a main hero's death is a great way to make me dislike a story. That tells me that the hero will either go to the afterlife and then safely return, that they'll be resurrected, or that they'll outright fake their death, which the prophecy should have already known, so why it chose to be vague is meant to stir up drama for readers' benefit. This is the same reason I don't like stories that begin with, "That was the day I died." I have no attachment to those characters on page 1 to care about their future, and know that they're most likely misleading the readers. I have yet to read a story with this obviously emotionally manipulative trick where the character died and didn't come back. Worse, I find that the characters tend to be self-absorbed and lacking in basics like common sense and agency as they march towards their inevitable fake-out death. Aside from the foreknowledge of a character's seemingly imminent demise, the story gives no redeeming qualities or reasons to want to follow them in their journey. I don't want to admit which books I've read this year which had a prologue where the characters said they were going to die, but one of them was universally panned as trash. Then there's the uncomfortable prophecy from Dune. Spoilers ahead, though this is based on my interpretation of the text and I may have misread it. Skip to this point if you want a clean read of the novel, as I doubt the movies are going to go into this plot point. Based on what I read, I believe that the Bene Gesserit sect seeded prophecies across that universe. They did this to create religious fanatics who could be called upon when needed. This made it seem like pure chance that the prophecies turned out to be true, and that Paul Atreides became the Kitsak Heterak. Sure, the spice collected on Dune did bestow the ability to see the future, though to me it was unclear whether the prophecies the Bene Gesserits created were actually something they foresaw, or whether they were planted there to create a future military force. When it comes to prophecies, my advice is don't. Unless you are writing a Greek tragedy or a story heavily influenced by mythology, anecdotally speaking, a prophecy is an illusion meant to fool readers or allow for bad plot mechanics. The word counts associated with a prophecy, its interpretation and reveal, is better suited to strengthen the plot, theme, characters, and logic of the story. Thus, my prophecy rant is over, and it will vary by mileage. Personally, I have yet to read a story with a worthwhile prophecy, or one which didn't detract from the story. Who knows? I hope to be proven wrong in the future. I am Ben Pick, and thank you for joining me in Running to Write. If you enjoyed my winding prophesize rant, then please press those like and subscribe buttons. Let me know in those comments whether you know of a book with a meaningful prophecy which didn't create the plot of the story. I've said a lot today, and I know that many of you listeners will and should disagree with me. What do you think? Is everything I said wrong? I post my running and writing progress on Instagram and Twitter as Running to Write, so be sure to follow me and join in with your own thoughts. Don't forget to sign up for the Writing to Write monthly newsletter for regular updates on my assorted musings, pitfalls, and lessons learned. I'll also include relevant milestones in running and writing. See you next time. Until then, consider whether a prophecy is needed within a story, or whether it would be better suited without vaguely telling the reader what's going to happen.